Practice my makeup with me while I tell you 12 things that I've learned in 12 months of marriage. Hello beautiful people, and welcome back to my channel. First things first, not too much on my hair. Not too much. Yesterday was wash day, and I'm also doing a braid out for church tomorrow. And so this is the process we have to go through to get those beautiful braid outs that you all know and love. When you see a Loc'd babe with a beautiful braid out, know that she was looking like Pop Smoke a few hours before to get that. So this is what we're working with today. This is what we got. But tomorrow though, okay. Today's video is a get ready with me whilst I talk about 12 things that I've learned in 12 months of marriage. As of next month, I would have been married for a year and a half, and on my anniversary I posted 12 things that I have learned in 12 months of marriage, but I didn't really get a chance to go deeply into them or really explain or describe some of the things that I wrote down. So I thought it would be cool to get ready with me, do my makeup whilst we talk about 12 things that I've learned in 12 months of marriage. Now, this is not actually a get ready with me because I am not going anywhere. It's raining cats and dogs outside and I'm not leaving the house, but I am practicing my makeup. I'm really in the place right now where I'm trying to figure out my signature makeup looks. So I want to have like my go-to makeup look for everyday makeup, no makeup, soft glam, and then full glam. And part of that is just practicing my makeup daily to see what looks good, what works on my face, and obviously to also improve. And so we're actually just practicing my makeup as we talk, but it would be a little weird if I put up PMWMM, practice my makeup with me instead of just get ready with me. So yeah, we can pretend we have somewhere to go, but we're literally just practicing our makeup as we talk. It's been back to back with the vlogs, but let's slow it down a little bit and just have a good old-fashioned girl chat. Is that okay? Is that okay? All right. So I think like part of who I am and what I like to do is really just help people. I'm not going to use dewdrops today because I'm wasting it. Really just help people, men and women, but more specifically women. My heart for women is huge. I believe that women are such amazing beings, and having been walking with God for 10 years this year, there's so many things that I probably could have avoided if I just had an older sister or somebody older in the faith around my age group guiding and leading me on this journey. And because I didn't have that, I'm trying to be the difference. I'm trying to be what I didn't have for other people, right? So I have sort of self-proclaimed myself the Christian big sister. Maybe on the internet, maybe in real life, but I'm kind of like a Christian big sister, and everything that I aim to do is to just help the girlies out. Like, I'm just trying to help the girls. Just be a big sister to the girls and warn them of what's to come and prepare them for what's out there so that they don't have to make the same mistakes that I do. And in a few weeks, literally, I will be 30 years old, and I've done so much in 10 years of walking with God and seen so much in 10 years of walking with God. And as a 30-year-old, I'm older than a lot of the people that do follow me and do look up to me, I guess. And I just try to be a big sister to them, a big sister in the faith, a big sister in life, a big sister in every sense of the world, in every sense of the word. As a firstborn, I don't have a big sister, right? I am a big sister, but I don't have a big sister. And even yesterday, my sister was telling me, like my actual sister, was telling me that, you know, she was trying to make a move and she's like, oh, if you do it, I'll do it. And I was like, I'm not ready to do that now. And she's like, yeah, well, you're my big sister. Like, I'm scared to just do it by myself. But if you do it and I see it works for you, then I can do it. And I'm like, oh, you see, that's literally the role of a big sister, to go before and show the others that it's okay, that it's possible, and give them tips so that when they try to do the same thing, they can avoid the mistakes that the big sister made, right? So yeah, that's pretty much who I am and what I try to do in every area. And one thing that I've come to learn and realize is that, especially in the area of marriage, nobody's actually preparing women on what to expect in marriage. I understand why, because obviously nobody wants to expose themselves or expose their husband to the world. You are in covenant with your husband, and so obviously you have to maintain some form of secrecy. Okay, some form of secrecy. So you can't just be out here spreading your business, because your business is now your husband's business. But at the same time, because of that, what we tell women, or what we explain to women, or what we teach women in terms of preparing for marriage is very surface level compared to what is actually experienced in marriage. There's nobody actually telling you the reality of what there is to experience in marriage, or what there is to expect in marriage, because everybody's trying to protect themselves. Hershey. Because everybody is trying to protect themselves. Everybody is not trying to expose themselves. Everybody's not trying to expose their spouse. So they're not really giving you the real tea on what marriage is, what to expect, and how to actively prepare for it. And don't get me wrong, I get it. I absolutely get it. But I just feel like it really does a disservice for us, because then we're not spending adequate time preparing by learning the right things. We're literally just doing what we think is right, and then we can still end up coming into marriage unprepared. I always say that I don't think that you can ever be 100% ready for marriage. I just don't. But I do think that you can be prepared. And I think you can also be ill prepared. And I feel as if, because we are not actually sharing the realities of marriage, we are making women ill prepared. Now, even with that, like I said, we need to use wisdom. We can't just be out here exposing our spouses and exposing their vulnerability in the name of I'm preparing others for marriage, because that would not be wise. But I do think we can be a bit more transparent in telling people where we fell short, or where we see that we fell short, or where we see that we weren't adequately prepared, so that if they relate, then they can also prepare from there, or gain and glean from there and be able to prepare. I'm using tinted edge control for my eyebrows. This is what I use. I use tinted edge control just to lay them down. I love the laminated eyebrow look, and so what I use to lay them is just tinted edge control. Doing eyebrows is like such a pain point for me. Like, I just feel like they take forever to do and they never come out right. One of my eyebrows is a step sibling, and he's so mad that he ended up in this family because he refuses to obey. And it's this one. This eyebrow is so cutesy, so mindful, so demure, so obedient. But this eyebrow, he's so mad that he ended up in this family. So he doesn't respect. Anywho, 12 things I've learned in 12 months of marriage. Let us dive in. Number 1, with this particular point, we need to, first of all, figure out what we deem as success in marriage. Is a success a marriage that lasts and there's no divorce? Or is success a marriage where children are birthed? Or is success a marriage where purpose is found and achieved? Or what is success in marriage? What do you deem success in marriage? When you see a couple, what do you consider as them having a successful marriage? Or even not when you see a couple, maybe even yourself, when you think about marriage, what do you consider as being a successful marriage? And that will tell you what you consider success in marriage. The interesting thing is it's different for everyone. For some people, like someone who comes from a broken home or a divorced home, success in marriage might simply be staying together. Just staying together. As long as the couple stays together, then they're successful. For somebody else, success in marriage might be wealth, like the woman is working or maybe even not working. Hello. She's a stay-at-home wife, but her husband is working and he's bringing in money and she's taking care of the kids. For somebody else, they would deem such a marriage as successful. For somebody else, it's having lots of kids. If you have 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, plenty children as a couple, some might say, oh, that means that the marriage is successful. So you need to know what you consider as a successful marriage, because that is going to play a big role and a big part in what you prioritize. Yeah, what you prioritize in marriage. If you think a successful marriage is the one, Hershey, what is it? What's wrong? Relax, okay? If you think a successful marriage is the one that is staying together, then you will do everything to stay together. If you think a successful marriage is one where, you know, there's a lot of wealth or there's a lot of money, then you may prioritize work. If you think, do you get what I'm saying? So whatever you think or whatever you deem as successful in a marriage is where you will channel your efforts. That aside, we as believers have a baseline of what is meant to be successful to us in marriage. We have a guide. We have a standard for us of what is success in marriage. For us, a marriage that is godly is a marriage that is successful. A marriage that is kingdom is a marriage that is successful. So despite outside of the parameters of wealth, outside of the parameters of children, outside of the parameters of anything else, any of the other benefits that marriage brings, the number one standard and the number one marker or indicator of a successful marriage for a believer is the fact that the marriage is godly. So when we measure what it is that makes a marriage successful, it is a marriage that is godly. It is a marriage that both individuals reflect the character of God. And that cannot be done without God. How can you be like someone without knowing who they are? It's impossible. How can you be godlike without knowing how God is? And so that's why I say you can have a lasting marriage without God, but you cannot have a godly marriage without God. Unbelievers have lasting marriages all the time. If we're looking for lasting marriages, you can look in the world and find people with lasting marriages. You can look in the world and find Muslims. You can look in the world and find Hindus. You can look in the world and find Sikhs. People of every religion that has a marriage that lasts. You can look in the world and find agnostics and atheists, and they will have lasting marriages. They will have been together for years and years and years and have lots of children and have wealth and have money. There's lots of people in this world who are rich, who have plenty children, who have been together for 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years, who have all of those things that we in our feeble minds may consider as a successful marriage, but they don't have Christ. They don't believe in Christ, or they're of another religion, but they still have a marriage that has lasted. They still have the benefits of marriage, which is children. They still have money. They still have careers. They have all of that. But the only area, the only place you can find a successful marriage in the context of the Bible, which is a kingdom marriage or a godly marriage, is in the place where God is in the midst of the marriage. It's in the place where the members of the marriage are believers and they have strived and decided to be godly. So when we talk about a successful marriage for believers, the only indicator is the fact that both people are striving to be godly. Now that is even that in and of itself is very easier said than done. One thing that I've learned in marriage is no matter how many books you read and how much you know the right thing that you're supposed to do, when the opportunity is presented to you, you probably are going to choose your flesh. Because I'm sure you've heard many a times people say marriage is like a mirror, right? Marriage is like a mirror, and it reveals yourself to you. It's not that easy to have to deal with the truth. It's not that easy to have to deal with the revelations that marriage brings. If marriage is a mirror, it's revealing yourself to you, right? And sometimes seeing the revelation and seeing who you really are and how you really are and how toxic you can be and how problematic you can be is not an easy thing to accept. Seeing how toxic you can be, it's not an easy thing to accept. And so sometimes you are very much in the wrong, but the pain and the pride of accepting that you are in the wrong and you are the one that has to apologize seems so hard and so impossible at that very moment that you choose not to apologize. Sometimes the pain and the embarrassment or the shame that comes with knowing that you did this or made like a stupid decision is so difficult that you choose not to accept it and you choose to argue or you choose to act indifferent. And so when I say you can read all the books, no matter how many books you read, no matter how many sermons you watch, no matter how many conferences you attend, when it's time to make the decision, it's a lot easier said than done. It's the same as with sin, right? Like, we all know we're not supposed to sin. As a Christian, we all know what we should be doing and what we should not be doing. But we still sin. Why? Why is it that we know we are not supposed to do certain things, but we still do them as Christians? Because in the moment, you choose your flesh. In the moment, you choose yourself. In the moment, you choose what you want to do over the fact that you know and you're aware that you're supposed to be godly. That's how sin comes about. Many times when we sin, we know that we're sinning. That's why we go and we repent and we ask for forgiveness. We know that we are sinning, but we choose to sin anyways. Because in the moment, the comfort of sin or the decision to sin seems more rewarding than the decision to walk in obedience and choose to live godly. And that's the same thing as in marriage. You can read 1,000 books in preparation for marriage. You can watch all the sermons. You can have the best mentors, have premarital counseling, do everything that you're supposed to do. But at the end of the day, when you are married in your house and your husband or wife is pissing you off and you guys are in a heated argument and you can just apologize and end it, you will choose your flesh, because the reward of being right at that moment is worth more than apologizing and ending things. Or the reward of is worth more for you than apologizing and ending things. And it's in those moments that we have to choose or decide to be godly. If we want successful marriages as men and women of God, we need to choose to be godly. Today I'm using the L'Oreal Infallible 24 Fresh Wear. It was recommended to me by one of the Sassy and Save ladies, so I'm trying that out today. It's so watery. Wow. No matter how much your spouse pisses you off, you must be godly. No matter what they do to offend you or hurt you, you must be godly. In marriage, you always have to be crucifying your flesh. You cannot decide to choose your flesh today, because it gives the enemy foothold in your marriage to come in and cause strife and stir things up. You always have to be in pursuit of honoring. I feel like this is a little red. I always put some on my neck because my neck is darker than my face. due to a hormonal imbalance, specifically the hormone of insulin, but we're working on that. So you have to choose to honor God no matter how you feel in a specific moment. There will be some days where you don't feel like honoring your spouse. Your spouse has pissed you off. Your spouse has done something that has made you mad and you don't feel like honoring him. But because you have to honor God, you have to honor him. There will be days where you don't feel like doing certain things, but because you need to honor God, you have to do them. Now, that's not to say that anybody should make you a slave in your marriage or force you to do anything that you absolutely don't want to do. Like, there should be some sort of understanding, but that comes with marrying an understanding and kind man who is not going to usurp his authority over you, who is not going to hold over your head that he is the head and so you must submit, and will allow you and understand on days when you can't do stuff that you can't do them. But the overarching theme here is the fact that we are to honor God by being godly. And when we are godly, then we are to honor God by being godly. And when we do that, then our marriage is deemed successful. Godliness is not a sometimes thing. We don't have the option of deciding, oh, I'm going to be godly today, but I won't be godly tomorrow. Or today I don't feel like being godly, so I'll turn it off today and I'll go back to being godly tomorrow. That's not how it works. You have to be godly at all times. And so the number one thing, the number one lesson, which we've all heard as Christian women before, but I just want to hammer it home for you a little more. The number one thing that you can do to prepare for marriage is to just grow in God. Know his voice, have a relationship with him, because you're going to need to call on God 1,000 times in your marriage, more than 1,000 times. Every day you're going to need God to help you. You're going to need God to give you grace. You're going to need God to give you wisdom. You're going to need him to give you strength to be able to fulfill your role and your duties as a wife. Number 2. Forgive, forgive, forgive. Marriage, more than anything, is a journey of two forgivers. You need to know how to forgive if you want to be married. If you're like me and you hold grudges, you need to learn how to forgive. This is an area I'm honestly still working on, because one thing about me, I don't hold a grudge, okay? Like, for me, I feel like there's certain things that I would never do to people. So when they do it to me, I'm like, why would you do that? And it makes me so mad that I can't. I just can't. But one thing I've had to learn is that people don't think like you. People do not think like you. There's certain things that you won't do, maybe because you have been trained that way, or you just feel like, oh, that's too foul, but people don't think like you. And as much as you may want people to think like you, you have to understand that they don't, and that's okay. That's what makes us different. That's what gives us different superpowers, and that's what makes us need each other, because we have different strengths and different weaknesses. And so you need to learn how to forgive. If you want to marry, you cannot marry and marry well and marry happily until you learn how to forgive. If you, this is a bold statement to make, but if you can't forgive, like if you absolutely refuse to forgive, no matter how much they beg you, no matter how much they come and tell you, okay, I'm sorry, no matter how much they speak to you, you still refuse to accept it. No, I will not accept it. I've been holding a grudge for 10 years. I will never forgive this person in my life. Marriage might not be for you. Marriage might not be for you. It's better to enjoy your single life in peace if you know you have a problem forgiving. Don't even attempt marriage. It's not for you. It's not for you, okay? Because in marriage, forgiveness is literally the bedrock of the union. It is impossible to marry without having a forgiving heart. Like I said, forgiveness is something that is actually very difficult for me. I'm the type of person that I will just never speak to you again. Like, I cut off game strong. I will never speak to you again and I will be okay with it. But that is not a good trait. That is not a godly trait to have. That is something that I need to work on, because it's not a flex. It's not something to brag about. It's a character flaw, actually, that I have that I need to work on, because I know people brag about being able to cut people off and like it's a flex, but it's actually not a flex. It's a bad thing. But in marriage and through marriage, I've had to learn, and honestly I'm still learning, how to forgive. My camera keeps going down. I don't know what's wrong with this tripod that it keeps going down. And so I'm pulling it up and it's going down, and I'm pulling it up. So if I get carried away and start talking and I don't pull it up, sorry in advance. But I'm gonna try to monitor it so that that doesn't happen. Like I was saying, I've had to learn how to forgive in marriage, and it has actually helped me with that cutting off behavior to even preserve relationships that are not marriage, that are like friendships and stuff, without cutting people off, which is good, which is a good thing. So in that, marriage has made me a better person, and it has helped me in another area of life, which is what it's supposed to do, because I've had to learn how to forgive. Not being able to forgive your spouse, not being able to forgive your partner is one of the easiest and quickest ways to break a marriage. Resentment is a real thing, and pushing things under the rug, if you're the type of person that you just push things under the rug, you don't address them, which is something that I used to do all the time. I would just keep quiet about it, push it under the rug. I'll continue talking to you as normal, but in the back of my mind, I know that I don't necessarily fully trust this person, or I know that this person has done me wrong before, so I'm kind of walking on eggshells with them. Or I'm talking to you normally, but in the back of my mind, I have like a little bit of reservations about you just because of something that you've done before, even though we haven't addressed it. Okay, let me finish this. Even though we haven't addressed it and we've seemingly moved on and we're talking fine, because it has not been addressed, it's just been swept under the rug, I feel some type of way towards you. Or even if I don't feel some type of way towards you, I have a certain mindset about you, and so I'm not being my full authentic self with you, because in my mind, I'm thinking something, whether it's true or not. You can't have that in marriage, because that breeds resentment. And when it builds up and builds up and builds up, that's where you get to the point where like, I'm cutting this person off. I don't want to be friends with them anymore. I don't want this person around me. They've done too many foul stuff. Are you going to do that to your husband? Are you going to just build things in your mind, against your husband? Because slowly you will begin to build resentment in your heart. Whether you realize it or not, you will slowly begin to resent this person. And the devil will use that against you, baby. The devil will bring somebody into your life, bring somebody into your workplace, bring somebody, because he knows all the things that your husband is doing or your wife is doing that is pissing you off. And he will bring somebody in that seems like the perfect thing. And that's how you will just now cheat. And there will be so much issues. All because you had some hidden secret or unsolved animosity or issues with your partner. All because they've done something and you weren't able to forgive them. You just sort of let it slide, but you haven't truly forgiven. All because they did something to you and it made you feel a type of way and you weren't able to actually forgive them. You just swept it under the rug. The Bible tells us that little foxes spoil the vine. And in marriage, offense is inevitable. You are two different people coming from two different walks of life with two different upbringings. So obviously, you won't do things the same. They're going to offend you. But those little foxes, those little offenses will add up and spoil the vine if you don't forgive and move on from it. If you are unable to forgive, let me add some more blush because lately my blush has not been blushing. If you are not able to truly forgive and move on, those little foxes will spoil the whole vine. They will spoil everything And it'll all stem from those little offenses that you were not able to move on from. Those little offenses that you did not just talk out and figure out, that you kept buried in your heart and have now come and been the reason why you are getting divorced, or have been the reason why you have allowed Jezebel or an intruder to creep into your marriage. All because of unforgiveness. Unforgiveness can cause so much. The interesting thing is, many a times people don't even know that they're offending you. Your spouse can be doing something and they don't even know. They have no idea that they're offending you, because they come from a different walk of life, where in their house this is normal. In their house, that's how they do things. In their house, that's how they've grown up. But in your house, that is offensive. And so until you open your mouth and say, this is what you're doing, I don't like it, and it's hurting me, and choose to forgive them and move on and restore them to their clean slate, you are creating and breeding resentment in your heart. And forgiveness is an action. Like, you can't just say, oh, I forgive you, and think that you've forgiven them. You actually have to make the deliberate action to forgive in your heart and restore them to their clean slate. And that's what forgiveness is. Forgiveness is when you restore someone to their clean state. Despite their offense, it's like it never happened. You restored them to their clean slate. That's what true forgiveness is. Growing up, you might have heard people in church say, when you repent from your sins, it's like it never happened. That's what forgiveness is. When you repent, it's like it never happens. You don't remember. You don't mark it down and bring it up in an argument another time when you're talking. You don't keep it at the back of your mind or in your heart. You restore them to your clean slate, to their clean slate, as if nothing happened before. That is forgiveness. Releasing them or pardoning them from the penalties of the offense. Now, I want to say that releasing someone from the penalties or the consequences of an offense doesn't necessarily mean releasing them from the accountability, because those two can easily be misconstrued. You can recognize the offense but still pardon it. You're recognizing the offense, but you're deciding to release the feelings associated with the offense, which in my opinion is actually harder, because you're literally deeping the fact, like, wow, they actually did that. Like, they chose to do this. But even though they did that, I'm not going to let them deal with the consequences. I'm not going to let them bear the consequences of what they've done. I'm going to release the feelings attached to it. I'm going to tell them how I feel, and I'm going to release the feelings attached to it so that we can continue to move on. That's hard. That's not easy at all. And that's why marriage is not for boys and girls. It's for men and women. It's for people who can choose to take the high road, to be the bigger person, and to do the uncomfortable things for the sake of the unit, for the sake of godliness. As a woman of God, as a man of God, you are accountable for how you act. Not what they did, but how you act. Not what they did, but how you respond. And that's what it means. That's what it means when we say at the end of life, we will be held accountable. God is not focused on what he did. God is not focused on what she did. He's focused on how you responded, because how you respond to their actions shows your maturity or immaturity in Christ, shows your transformation in Christ, shows your yielding to the Spirit, shows you're being led shows you're being led by Christ or being led by the flesh. How you choose to respond despite what they've done. And this is not only in marriage, this is in friendships, this is in work relationships, in any sort of relationship you find yourself in. How you choose to respond shows more about you and who you are as a Christian than it does about them. And so we need to learn to be men and women that are led by the Spirit and not by the flesh, especially in marriage. And it comes, and so you will forgive in marriage. Your spouse will offend you, but you will. And so you will need to learn how to forgive in marriage. Your spouse will offend you, but you must learn how to forgive. No matter how much they hurt you, you must still perform your wifely duties or your husbandly duties. You can't say, I'm not cooking today because my husband pissed me off. Like, you don't have the luxury of saying no dinner today because you've made me mad. You still have to show up and do what you're supposed to do as a wife, whether you're happy with him or angry with him, because your responsibilities don't get turned off just because you're in your feelings. You must choose to grace. You don't get a pass because you're offended. And so forgiveness in that situation, I rather helps you, because I would rather say what's on my mind, address it, forgive you, and go make dinner, rather than having to sit there and make dinner and put my heart in it for somebody that I'm pissed off at. Like, I'm so mad at you and I'm making you the best dinner you've ever had? Absolutely not. Let's discuss first. Let me tell you how I feel. Let me get it off my chest. You apologize, we move on, and now I can make the dinner with a good and clean heart, so the Lord can hear my prayers. Number 3, your upbringing plays a huge part in how you show up as a husband or wife. This is a big one. We know, or maybe we don't know, but the home is the first classroom for any child. Much of who you are as an individual comes back to what you were exposed to in your house. How you show up in the world, how you respond to conflict, what you believe about yourself, all of these things fall in line with what was exposed to you in your home. If you grew up in a home where you were given the freedom to express yourself, the freedom to make choices and make mistakes, you will have confidence in that area. However, if you grew up in a home where your parents were maybe very strict and you did not have the opportunity or the freedom to do those things, you probably have an issue with decision making. If you grew up in a home where you were shamed or you were scolded when you made the wrong decisions, you probably are a perfectionist and you probably have a really hard time making decisions as an adult. If you grew up in a home where basic necessities were given to you, but your emotional needs weren't met, you're probably a person who is not very in tune with their emotional side, or who is not very emotionally intelligent. Much of who we are and how we show up as adults has to do with what we were exposed to as children. And because of that, it shows up in how we show up as husbands and wives. So, for example, the example I just gave, you come from a home where decisions were taken by your parents. You were not allowed to decide anything. You were not allowed to give your input. Everything was decided for you, dictated for you. You didn't have the freedom to choose what you want. You probably don't really know yourself. You probably don't know really what you want, what you like, what you don't like. You probably just go through life making decisions or dealing with the decisions or taking on the decisions and the personality of what people have set out for you. Now, if you're a man and you're a husband and you're the head of the household and your wife is looking at you to make decisions, you may be really indecisive. You may go back and forth with, how do I do this? I don't know. You may make decisions and then think that they are wrong, and so you're always changing. It can be very difficult being married to a man like that. But that is not something that somebody just up and does. It's because they come from a household where they weren't given the freedom to make decisions. As a woman, if you come from a household where you're not necessarily close with your parents, you don't have a good relationship with your mom, or you were never really poured into or spoken life into, you may have a lot of insecurities, and that will show up in how you are a wife. You will have insecurities in your marriage, insecurities with your husband, and so on and so forth. And so your upbringing shows up so much in how you are a husband or a wife. And some of the things that you or your spouse will do, you will realize you do them because of how you were brought up. So for example, in my house, we don't hug. Growing up, I don't think I've hugged my parents before. And even if I have, it hasn't been enough times where I can actually remember them. And so physical touch is something that is difficult for me and has been difficult for me. Even in getting married, sometimes my husband will like touch me or hug me and I will be like a bit startled because I'm not used to it. It's not something that I'm used to. I'm now learning physical touch. I'm now learning how to do it, right? And that's because of how I was brought up. But being around my husband's family and seeing how they act and how they interact, they're always touching each other, they're always hugging each other, they're always, you know, things like that. And so my husband is very touchy. So someone who grew up in a house where there was no touch and someone who grew up in a house that was very much touch, coming together, there's going to be a bit of, you know, turbulence because you may not understand each other. And so I realized that the reason why I'm so like, I don't want to be touched, I'm not this, not used to it, is because that's how I grew up. Now it's up to me to decide to unlearn that and understand that, oh, touching is a form of affection showing. When you touch someone, you're showing some affection. And I'm getting better by God's grace, but I also had to think that my husband and I are now creating a new home where our children will be brought up to. Do I want my children to feel like they can't touch mommy, they can only hug daddy because mommy doesn't like to be touched? Or am I willing to unlearn what I've learned so that I can create a home where my children know they can run into mommy's arms if they've had a bad day and they need a hug, where my children know if the weight of the world is on their shoulders and they just need a tight hug, they don't have to wait for daddy to come home, they can get it from mommy, right? And so these are things that are realities in marriage that you are not taught and you are not talked to about. But how you grew up or what you were exposed to will show up so much in how you show up as a wife and eventually a mother or father. So you need to learn what those things are. What are the things that were lacking in my house? And your parents are not perfect. Nobody's perfect. Maybe that's how they grew up, or maybe it's not something that they were exposed to, so they couldn't give that to you. But you, being more enlightened, have the opportunity to be the change for your future home. And so it's very important. Even something as simple as birth order. I started this video by saying I am a firstborn child. And so as a firstborn, there's certain shared realities that firstborns have. We're very strong-headed, we're perfectionists, we don't like making mistakes. These are all firstborn qualities because we have all the pressure of everybody looking up to us. So we always have to do it and do it right. We have to do it perfect. We're very hyper independent. We have no one to rely on. Nobody's going to do it for us, so we have to do it by ourselves. And so I'm coming into marriage as this hyper independent individual. I can do all bad by myself. I don't need nobody's help. I can do this. I don't want to bother people. Even when I'm dealing with something in my singleness, if I'm dealing with something, if as a firstborn daughter, who am I gonna, I don't have an older sister to go and cry to. I deal with it by myself in my room and I get over it. Meanwhile, my little sisters, as soon as any small inconvenience should be ringing down my phone. My sister can call me 50 times a day. Do you know what happened? At work, they did this. Oh my gosh, I'm at the store and they won't let me return my thing. And I'm there talking her through it. That's the benefits of being a lastborn. We went to the store the other day. I was buying a sweater. She picked up a sweater. She put it in the cart. Did she have money? Did she have money? But she knew that her older sister got her, right? And so just little things like that. Being a firstborn daughter, I'm coming into my marriage with all of these tendencies that I've lived my whole life with as a firstborn. I'm independent. I deal with things by myself. I don't share my emotions with anyone. I don't let anybody see me cry or sweat. What else? I'm a perfectionist. Meanwhile, I'm marrying a middle child who is the opposite, who is used to having an older brother or sister that they can call and depend on and make decisions with, who is used to sharing their feelings. Middle child are often overlooked because, you know, they're in the middle, they're overlooked, and so they don't get as much attention as the oldest or the youngest. And so I'm dealing with, and so I'm marrying a middle child, and I have to understand his way of reasoning, his conflict resolution style, his needs from a wife, is different from mine. If I'm dealing with something, I don't want to talk about it. I just want to think. I want to be in my head. I want to figure it out and move on. If he's dealing with something, he wants somebody to listen to him. He wants to be able to express it because he's a middle child. Those things show up in your marriage and you think, oh, this is nothing. It's something. It shows up and it shapes who you are and how you show up in your relationship. And so you also need to be able to recognize these things so you can show up as your best version and be the best spouse for your spouse. I don't know if I can get through all 12. How much time have we done? I think like we're in an hour. I probably have to do like 4 or 5 or maybe 6. Let's do 6. Let's do half today and then we'll do half another time. Because I can't. If I do all 12, we'll be here until 2 hours. And so how you show, what you were exposed to, who you are is a big part of your upbringing. And some things were right and some things were wrong. Some things your parents got right and some things your parents did not get right. And that's okay. And what you need to do is figure out what was right and what was wrong and filter that through the word and then work with your partner to figure out what type of atmosphere are we trying to create? What type of home are we trying to create for our children? And what do we like and what do we not like? And be able to talk it through. Number 4, the enemy attacks the marriage unit greatly, but God blesses it greatly as well. One thing you need to understand about marriage is that the enemy does hate marriage. He literally hates the fact that you're married, and he is doing everything to make sure that your marriage doesn't last. And he's going to use you and your spouse to break the marriage up. He's not going to use anybody else. He's going to use you guys. Like, of course, there are going to be factors and agents that he sends to distract you. But at the end of the day, it's going to be you guys that choose to break up the marriage. When a marriage ends for something, for example, like infidelity, yes, the enemy brought the agent. The enemy brought the man or woman to be a distraction to you or your husband. But at the end of the day, it was you or your husband that decided to go back on their vows, that decided to turn away from their commitment and indulge with this person. And so the enemy is loud. He's after your marriage. He's trying to destroy it, but he's using you to do it. And so you need to be very aware of that and do not be ignorant to the enemy's devices. He has devices that he uses to control us and to influence us, to turn on our commitment to God and turn on our commitment to each other. But you can't be ignorant to those devices. You have to know that he is on the prowl, trying to destroy. And so you need to also be on alert, trying not to be devoured. He's trying to destroy and devour. And so you also need to be on alert so you're not devoured. With that being said, the enemy does attack the marriage unit. He's going to throw everything he can to get you guys off your game, to get you guys to not be unified, to get you guys to be angry at each other, to get you guys to break unity, because unity in marriage is the most powerful tool you have. The Bible tells us, how can two walk together unless they agree? People can't walk together unless they agree. That's why when you come to Christ, you typically lose a lot of your friends. Not because you're a hater and you suddenly don't want to be friends with them, but because how can you walk with someone you don't agree with? If you are moving in the way of the Lord and you're trying to turn away from your old ways, and you have friends that are still living in the way of the world and they don't understand why you're doing the things that you do, you can't walk with them because you guys don't agree. You guys are not in agreement. You can't walk with them because you guys don't agree. You guys are not in agreement. And so it makes it hard to walk with them, right? But, and so the enemy's ploy and his way of getting into a union is to make sure that they don't agree, to bring in disagreement. And he will use every avenue possible to bring in disagreement. You know, the enemy studies you. He knows your likes and dislikes. He knows your wants. He knows your needs. And anywhere where you or your partner is lacking for the other person, or anywhere where you struggle, he is going to do his best to bring disagreement within the midst of you so that you guys cannot walk together. with that being said, he is constantly attacking your unit. He is constantly attacking the union with the information he has on you. Maybe your partner has been asking you to, you know, dress a little more sexy, and you're like, no, I don't want to do that. I'm a tomboy. I want to stay in my ways. I don't want to do that. And so the enemy will bring a sexy, nice looking person dressed the way your husband wants you to dress into his workplace. He's attacking the union, right? Maybe in the form of sickness, maybe in the form of delayed childbirth, maybe in the form of so many different things the enemy will throw your way to bring disagreement. But you and your partner have to choose to be unified through it all, because the moment where you guys separate, the moment where you guys are no longer together, the moment where it's not you two fighting against the enemy, but you two fighting against each other, he has already won, and things will just break brick by brick. On the flip side, God also blesses the marriage unit greatly. God is a fan of marriage. That's one thing I've come to learn and recognize, that God is a fan of marriage. Where there is marriage, there is God. That doesn't mean that if you're not married, God is not a fan of you. That doesn't mean that if you're not married, God is not going to bless you. But I have seen God show up for not only us, but so many couples in marriage in a way that I don't want to say in a way that he was not showing up in singleness or in dating, but I've just seen the blessings of God in marriage. God is for you, and he's for the success of your marriage, and so he shows up and he shows out in marriage. So there's no need to be afraid that, oh, the enemy is attacking me, the enemy is after me in marriage, because God has also got you in marriage. Okay, guys, can we look at this look? Guys, can we look at this look? Like, it's even making me want to take down my hair, but I have to leave it because tomorrow for church is when I'm gonna take it out. But this is so cute and so fire. I'm just gonna finish up with a lip, then we can continue talking. Number 5, your spouse is your safe space and you are theirs. Keep being safe. So you're in marriage, well, how it should be in marriage is your spouse, you are the number one person, and you are the one person in the world that your spouse can turn to, look to, be themselves with, and know that they won't be judged. You are the one person in the world that your spouse can 100% be themselves with, without fear of judgment, without fear of hate, without fear of inadequacy, without fear of being rejected. Okay? Your spouse should feel like, if everybody in the world has left me, I know that my wife or my husband has got me. If everybody in the world has deserted me, I know that I can go to my wife, I can go to my husband, and he's gonna have my back. And that is what your marriage should be like, and that is what your marriages should feel like. You should feel like your spouse is your safe space. You can tell them anything. No matter how bad it is, you can tell them anything that you've done, anything that you've thought, anything, and know that they are your safe space, and they will point you back into the way of Christ. That's what it means to be someone's safe space. This is the e.l.f. lip oil. I really fell off in telling you guys what I was using, but my camera literally died and I had to go and charge it for 30 minutes before I can come and finish this video. So we're gonna stop at 6 today, and we'll continue next week with a part 2 of the 12 things I've learned. But I believe we were talking about being a safe space. Like I said, you are the person in the world that your partner should be able to share anything with, be their complete self, not hiding, not putting on a mask, and know that you're a safe space. We go to work, we go to school, we go into the world, and we have a mask on. We have to worry about what people are going to think. Your partner is the one person in the world you should be able to be your 100% 100%, 100% authentic self with. You think about Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden, they were naked and unashamed before the enemy brought shame in between them. And so you should be able to be naked and unashamed in front of your partner, physically, like in your body, but also emotionally. You can be completely naked with them and unashamed of who you are, of how you think, of your personality, of what you believe in the world. You should be able to be naked and unashamed. The one person on earth that you can be completely transparent with, completely naked with, completely unashamed with, without fear of judgment, without fear of being abandoned or being left. That is a safe space. The person who you are when you're home, they should be a place of safety, a place of home. They should be home to you, and you should be that to them. But you must strive to keep being that to them. Keep being a safe place. Keep being a place of safety. You abandon or you forego being that safe place when you judge your partner, when you hold things over their head, when you compare them to others, when you try to change them. You're no longer a safe space. And so when I say you are your partner's safe space, keep being safe, it's always be that place where they can be themselves. Always be that place where they can be 100% themselves and not have to minimize or hide who they are. If your partner can't be themselves with you, they're going to find somebody that they can be themselves with. If your partner can't come and speak to you without fear of you overreacting or judging them, they will find someone else that they can speak with. If they can't come to you for advice without trusting that you're going to be a safe space, without judging them or without condemning them or speaking to them crazy, they're going to find someone that they can be that with. Woe unto you if your partner has a safe space that is not you. You are your partner's safe space, so keep being safe. Keep being a place of safety for them. After my camera died, my light died. So I had to go and charge that too. So it's literally been almost 2 hours since I sat down to record this video, and I kept the makeup on my face just so that I can finish. So this video will end here. But number 6 is holding grudges doesn't advance anybody's agenda but Satan's. Okay. Like we've already discussed earlier on in the video, Satan's goal is to get you and your partner to disagree. He's to get you and your partner to be disunified, to be disengaged, to be divorced. And so Satan is trying to take the beautiful unit that you are, that God has made you, and divide it. Divide, divorce, disengage, disagree. See how they all start with did, because all those words deal with division. And Satan's goal in your marriage is division. To divide, to disengage, to disagree, to distrust, to divorce, And so he is looking for you to hold grudges. And so he will do that through offense. One of the biggest baits of Satan in life is offense. And through offense and being unforgiven, you begin to hold grudges. You hold grudges. I'm not talking to you going to bed without talking to this person. Wake up, you're still in a grudge. You guys are not talking. You're not on good terms. Satan lives for it. If you want to be Satan's baby girl, hold a grudge. Whenever you hold a grudge, Satan is like, yes, well done, good and faithful servant, for advancing my agenda. I don't even have to do much. You decided to hold a grudge and not talk to your husband for a week. Yeah, you're my good and faithful servant. Satan is like, yeah, this is my girl. So if you want to be, if you want to be Satan's girl, if you want to be advancing his agenda, if you want to be doing his dirty work for him, hold a grudge. Don't forgive. Then he's like, yeah, me and her, this is my girl. We're locked in. Because that's what he wants you to do anyways. But when you recognize that you're siding with Satan and advancing his agenda by staying mad, by staying in offense, by not forgiving, by holding grudges, and you decide you want to be on the winning side, you want to be on God's side, you need to forgive, you need to not hold grudges, you need to apologize even when you're right, and accept apologies. Apologize when you're wrong and accept apologies, so that you can be on the right side. Holding grudges doesn't advance anybody's agenda but Satan. When you hold a grudge, you're doing exactly what Satan wants you to do. You're fighting with your spouse. You're dividing. You're divorcing. You're disengaging. You're bringing division. It's unity that Satan can't stand. It's unity that makes a marriage work. It's unity that keeps people together. The Bible tells us, how can two walk together as unless they agree? And we see that in the Bible, in Genesis, when the people were building the Tower of Babel, the reason why the people were building the Tower of Babel, the Lord said, the people are one. And so anything they do, they can put their mind to. That shows us the power of unity. God says the people are one. These are the people that's building a tower against the Lord. And God, is saying the people are one. The people are unified. The people are united. So everything they do, everything they put their minds to, they can do. So what must we do? We must confuse them. We must bring division against them. That shows us that everything that you do when you're unified as a couple will work. Anything you guys put your mind to, any dreams you have, any plans, any goals, anything you want to do as a couple works when you guys are united. That's why Satan is trying to bring division. So don't work for Satan for free. Do not hold grudges. Do not argue with your partner. Do not hold grudges. Do not fight against your partner. Do not go to bed being angry at your partner. My husband and I, we have this thing where we don't go to bed angry at each other. Sometimes as humans, we'll try to drag it and we'll go to bed. But even in the midst of that, we'll wake each other up in the middle of the night. It's mostly him. I'll be honest. It's mostly him. Wake me up in the middle of the night and be like, okay, we have this rule. Let's fight. Let's deal with it. Let's move on. And then we move on. This is a work in progress. I'm a work in progress. I'm the one that loves to hold grudges. I already told y'all my tea. I'm not even trying to hide it. But it's something that we need to work on. It's something that we all need to work on, because why are we working for Satan for free? We don't even like him. And so those are 6 amazing things that I've learned in 12 months of marriage. There are 6 more, and tune in. Those are 6 amazing things that I've learned in 12 months of marriage. I have grown so much in a year of marriage, well, a year and a half now of marriage, and I'm just so excited for what is to come, for all the many years ahead. Remember that marriage is less about your comfort and more about your Remember that marriage is a tool that God uses for our transformation. He uses marriage to make us more like him. He uses marriage to make us into the men and women that he has called us to be. And so lean into that. Be transformed and be changed by your marriage. Learn the necessary lessons and come out stronger. That's all for today's video. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and even share the video so somebody else can see it too, because we are young, because we are the new adults, and we're just trying to figure out how to show up and show up right, okay? Marriage is a beautiful thing, and I want us all to win at it and be the best version of ourselves as individuals and the best version of ourselves as partners. Tune in next week for part 2 of this video and the other 6 things that I've learned in 12 months of marriage. Thank you guys so much for watching. Bye.